Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on Broad Street South, 102.9 the game. I can see my man Angel in the background there taking a sip of water. Uh, he's back there. Great to be back on Broad Street South with the line of scrimmage. A lot of things have been hectic the last couple of months, as you probably are all well aware of. But what are you going to do? It's for the greater good. Um, Welcome to the line of scrimmage. I'm your host, Ryan Neff. There are 143 days, 17 hours, 58 minutes, and 30 seconds until the kickoff of the 2024-2025 college football season. And that's right. So that's basically, we're talking like, 20 weeks? So stoked. A lot of spring football games are coming up. This is when you sort of know what you have, where you're at with your program. So again, we'll have Jason Priester on, who covers Clemson football. Clemson, one of the few teams this weekend. I think NC State. I think Auburn's another one that this weekend they're having their spring game. So that'll be interesting to pick his brain, because Clemson sort of seems to be in flux right now. They've been down, a little bit down the last 3-4 years, ever since Trevor Lawrence left. Ever since they actually got their ass handed to them by LSU in that national title game. So, and again, NIL, the NIL stuff and the transfer portal is just sort of like throwing everything into chaos. So news and notes from around the country in college football. Northwestern motion to drop Fitzgerald case is denied. Everybody knows what happened with Pat Fitzgerald last year. That whole, the culture. There's some things that came out that you wouldn't have thought that would be happening in a Pat Fitzgerald. Hey yo, Mike Fuji. So Northwestern's motion to dismiss the $130 million wrongful termination lawsuit filed by former coach Pat Fitzgerald was denied Tuesday, setting up a potential trial in April 2025. That's a year from now, ladies and gentlemen. Why it's taken a year, I have no clue. Doesn't make any sense. $130 million wrongful termination. Where do you get $130 million from? Unless that's what was left on his contract. I don't know. So money. I'm just going. Adam Rittenberg, ESPN senior writer, Cook County Circuit Court Judge Daniel Kubasiak ruled that the case from Fitzgerald can proceed and set a trial date for April 7th, 2025. That's a year from now. Northwestern fired Fitzgerald in July last year, just 3 days after imposing a 2-week unpaid suspension for the coach, following the conclusion of investigation into hazing. We went over this last year in the football program. We will have to keep an eye on this. It's a year from now. Do you really need a year? I mean, do you really need a year to gather your facts? I mean, you got fired in July last year. That's like 9 months ago. Like, you couldn't have gotten all your facts straight in 9 months on either side? This doesn't make any sense. Why it would take an extra year. That'll be almost 2 years after he got fired, for the court to hear the case. Just reading some of the other stuff here by Adam Rittenberg. Fitzgerald filed his lawsuit in October, claiming that Northwestern violated a verbal contract by firing him for cause after agreeing to the suspension following the conclusion of its own investigation. We went over this. He also claimed Northwestern and University President Michael Schill violated his written contract. Neff, Joey B, my man. Fitzgerald is seeking $68 million that remained on his contract, which ran through 2030, as well as future earnings losses of approximately $62 million. So you're basically looking for $130 million. Really? I can see maybe going after what was remaining on the contract. But where are the future earnings of $62 million coming into play? You know what? maybe I ought to sue Angel for 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 breach of something. And
Wait. What are you suing for? What? Get out of here. Breach of nothing.
uh, so again, we'll have to keep an eye on this. It's messy. Um, and again, it's Joey B. Angel. Hello in Studio A/B.
What's up, Joey B? What's
That's
up,
right.
Pooch?
Uh, Memphis football coach Ryan Silverfield agrees to a 5-year deal uh, with the school through 2028. It'll pay him an average of yeah, Joey B. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Your kindness
We
is always appreciated.
yeah, we will be back.
um, it's going to pay him an average of $2.45 million annually. Uh, they had a fantastic year last year. Shout out to Sandy Adams. I'm sure she was thrilled with the football team. Uh, they went 10-3 last fall, won the Liberty Bowl. 43-year-old who took over from Mike Norvell before the 2019 Cotton Bowl. He's 31 and 14 in 4+ seasons with the Tigers, which is nothing to sneeze at, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, he basically goes 8-3 every year. Um, he previously had served as Memphis' offensive line coach under Norvell. Good for him. He earned $1.9 million in 2023. He received a raise to $2.2 million for the 2024 season. His salary will increase to $2.7 million by the following year of the term. Angel, I went into the wrong. I mean, I should have been a college football coach.
You should have.
That's what. Yeah,
You missed your
um,
calling.
that's right. His 31 wins marked the second most for a Memphis coach in the first 4 years, behind Norvell's 38. Um, yeah, man, he's doing some real good things there. So good for him. 5-year deal, almost $2.5 million a year. Yeah, I'd take it.
Why
Um,
not?
exactly. Uh, Warren Sapp is to join the Colorado football staff. I'm sure that pleases guys like Joey B. Warren Sapp.
Hold on.
Uh,
Wait. We're
he's
talking about that. I thought Deion Sanders was possibly making a move to Florida.
I don't know what's going to go on with him. Um, we'll see. Um, all kinds of stuff floating around when it comes to Dion. I'm sure he's going to stay there this year because of his kids. Once his kids leave, though, I don't know what he's going to do. Um, but Sapp is going to be a grad assistant coach. You're going to be a grad assistant coach. Um,
Are you sure they didn't mean to say you're a rad assistant
uh,
coach?
as reported by the Associated Press, um, he's headed back to the classroom in order to be more of a hands-on coach for the Colorado Buffaloes. What's he going to take up? I mean, he's been in deep water the last couple of years. I don't know what you're going to take. Um, what kind of courses could he take? Um, Sanders added the 51-year-old Sapp to the staff as a graduate assistant, which paves the way for him to work on the field with the team. Yeah, sure he's going to be a grad assistant. Sure he is. Yeah, because coaches aren't there to go to class.
Not at
Um,
all.
Sapp, who's taking classes, introduced himself to the Buffaloes as a senior quality control analyst. Um, Senior quality control analyst. Sounds like he's working in a lab. Um, the role would limit his involvement on the field. We're building mansions here, Sapp said to the team when he was introduced by Sanders to the group in a video posted on YouTube. That's why I'm here to help build your mansion. Well, maybe he's studying masonry.
And that could be it. that could.
Maybe
That,
because some of them have good NIL deals, so he's gonna build mansions for them. Well,
it could be. What? Listen, stranger things have happened.
I can't anymore. Um, we all know he was a Miami standout, obviously with the Hurricanes. He went to Tampa Bay, won the Super Bowl there, um, and it's just a whole lot of rhetoric the rest of the way. Um, yeah, so good for him. If you want to take classes to be a grad assistant to help the team build mansions, um, I just I don't know, man. It's some of this stuff is comical. I saw this LSU ex students settle sexual misconduct case. Um, again, as reported by the Associated Press, LSU and 10 former students who sued the school over alleged mishandling of sexual assault and domestic violence complaints against football players and others at Louisiana's flagship state university have settled the case. Um, quote unquote, the court has been advised that the parties in this matter have settled all their claims and have agreed to amicably resolve this dispute, U.S. District Judge Wendy Vitter wrote in a March 28th order dismissing the case. Settlement terms have not been disclosed, of course. Um, you know, some of the allegations were kind of brutal. Former LSU women's tennis player Jay Lewis said LSU failed to properly respond to reports that she was being beaten by former Tigers receiver Drake Davis while the two were in a relationship. And again, when you hear about stuff like this and stuff being settled, obviously there must have been some sort of truth um, to it. Uh, I don't discount any of this. And again, when football in the South is king, um, it's hush hush with the football program. You're always going to try and protect the football program. That's sort of like that's what I hate about college football sometimes is, if you get reports of whatever, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, or whatnot. Take it seriously. Make it come to the forefront, deal with it, and not try and sweep it under the rug all the time. Joey B, if I sued Fuji, all I would ask for is a 12 pack of Miller Light and a walk through Wawa in the Philly burbs. I don't even know if you'd get that. Um, uh, Joey B. Neff, I know this is a football show, but did you watch or have opinions on the Iowa LSU last night? Caitlin Clark as Angel Reese, too. Uh, to be quite honest with you, I forgot it was on. Um,
Oh,
so
shame,
I
shame.
didn't, by the time I caught wind of it, it was midway through the third quarter. And I was I couldn't get it because I don't have cable here. Everything is internet. And I was trying to pull it up on the internet somewhere. Look, it was the most watched women's college basketball game. It had beat out. I thought I saw something. There were like 7 or 8 things. It sort of beat out in 2023. Uh, Joey B, LOL, Angel in the quiet voice. Shame, shame, shame. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's good for women's college basketball. Reese against Caitlin Clark. What I didn't like,
Was
and
he
of
walking
course,
out of the national anthem?
well, that was kind of bogus.
That wasn't bogus. Have you lost your mind? You believe that poor excuse that the coach came out with that they had no idea that was it was time for a national. Stop it! Stop it! Don't get me fired up.
No, no, I said that I should reiterate that the excuse was bogus.
Okay.
Um, it's just Kim Mulkey being Kim Mulkey. Um, what I didn't like after the game is if you're going to wave bye bye to players on other teams, in Angel Reese's case, Angel Reese has issues, ladies and gentlemen. I'll say it now. I'll call it now. I know she came out after the game and said she received threats, the whole 9 yards. They were called debutantes. Look, you bring some of it on yourself. You really do. When you act a fool, people are really going to lay into you. Now, do death threats and stuff like that, I don't condone any of that. In the day of social media, look, I don't agree with some of the responses. I get it. Um, but look, if you're going to wave bye-bye to players and you're going to have that kind of cocky attitude and you have that sort of energy after the game, post game, when you lose, now all of a sudden, well, I had to deal with this and I had to. You were dealing with it when you were winning.
Yep.
You were dealing with it when you were winning. You were cocky, you were arrogant, and all of a sudden you lose. You don't like it. You're a sore loser. Then you come up with all the excuses in the world. And Kirby Smart always, Kirby Smart has, used this rhetoric before in football with his Georgia football team. Uh, Losers make up excuses. Winners face the music. Winners keep the same energy, whether in a loss or a defeat. Um, that's what I didn't like. Do I think it was fantastic for the game of basketball, women's basketball? Absolutely. You had Angel Reese, the previous year's national championship on that team for LSU, and then you have Iowa, who is trying to exact a little bit of revenge against LSU. So, I know Caitlin Clark played that down, uh, uh, you know, in the press conference, post game. So there's a way to handle things humbly, and and Angel Reese just comes off spoiled, entitled, and if you listen to her post game press conference, it was, I won a national championship here. I did this. I did that. Whereas Caitlin Clark, it's we, we. And I'm just going to tell people now, I'm not saying that because Angel Reese is black. And I'm not saying that because Caitlin Clark is white. It would just be the same if the roles were reversed. So, I don't want to hear any of that gunk. But again, we will see what happens going forward. Maybe Kim Mulkey can now focus on suing the Washington Post. I don't have to hear, I don't have to hear that dribble from Kim Mulkey anymore this season because I, on one hand, I applaud Kim Mulkey for doing X, Y, and Z to try and take the focus off the team so that they could prepare week in and week out, have the attention focused on her so that the team didn't have to worry about it. But some of the stuff that comes out of her mouth, some of the way she handles things, uh, I wouldn't want to play for her. I wouldn't want my daughter playing for her. And especially with some of the things that came out into the Washington Post report. Of course, she's going to deny all of it. You think she wants to admit to all of that? She probably never thought that any of that stuff would come out. But that's neither here or there. Let's get back to the college football aspect of it. But in conclusion, Joey B, I think it was great for the game of women's basketball. When you have rivalries like that, it just makes the teams better, the sport better. And I think it's just good for women's college basketball. And, we'll see what happens with Caitlin Clark in the national championship game. But like I said, with the LSU thing, it's everything. It looks like it happened under the old coach Ed Orgeron. We know how it ended for him in the end at LSU. So, just looking at some of the other news and notes from around the country. Again, the spring games that are going on. Let me pull them up again if I can. College football spring games. I had them here, all set to go, and now my phone doesn't want to work. So give me just a second here.
Sure.
Talk,
Key in
talk
the
amongst talk amongst yourselves.
key in the Jeopardy music, as you like to do to me all the time on Martinez and Company. So here you go. Now what, wise guy?
Go ahead, play it.
Yeah.
So this coming Friday, there are two spring games: Sacred Heart and Southern Methodist. And then you get to Saturday. This Saturday, there's a crap load of spring games, my friends. Um, you got Southern Miss, who's coming off a miserable season. UAB with a so-so season last year. Alabama A&M. Obviously, some of these spring games, it's both Division One, Division Two. I still call them Division One, Division Two, Division Three. New Mexico State. Um, it's New Mexico State. Nothing against New Mexico State, but Uh, they're not a football school. Clemson, obviously, with Jason Priester coming up at 7:30. You've got Tulsa, who is they've been decent the last couple of years. Also, the Auburn Tigers are playing this Saturday. Uh, we'll see what happens with that program. NC State, who NC State to me is always a program in the ACC that fans are happy when they have an 8-4 season, but it always seems they're on the precipice of doing something great as far as the football program is, and they just never can seem to get over the hump. Um, Duquesne, not Duquesne, not Duquesne as people would like to say in the NCAA tournament. Duquesne, North Texas, who had a decent season last year. Richmond, you have UNLV, A&M Commerce, Texas A&M Commerce, Marist, Navy, and Toledo. Toledo always the powerhouse in the MAC. Navy in flux. Um, Monday, there's actually a spring game. Vanderbilt. Um, they have to have their students study on the weekend. So, one day, 6 p.m. Next Thursday, you got Minnesota and Towson. Um, and the big day for spring football is Saturday, April 13th. There is a crap load of teams that have spring ball then, and also Saturday, April 20th. So this is the first step, my friends. Like I said, 143 days, till the season kicks off. Uh,
You have USF against FAU for the spring matchup, and they're going to bring some USF alum that is free and open to the public.
there you go. Some of the other news and notes from around the country. Um, this was from little maybe over a week ago. Um, I talked about this last week, and I just the games people play. When you feel like you've been scorned, or um, Washington was set to hire Washington State athletic Pac Chun to the same position. So Washington set to hire Washington State athletic director. It's a little bit of a rib and a jab. Chun replaces Tony Dannon, who left just months after accepting the job to take the open AD position at Nebraska because Trev Alberts left. It's a 6-year deal for Chun to leave the Cougars for the rival Huskies, according to multiple reports. Yes, the games people play in the world of college athletics. You're going to see more and more of this. Uh, I wish I could get, you know, people on from Washington or Washington State to discuss this. But again, with the collapse of the Pac-12, it just nothing ceases to amaze me, my friends. Nothing. Um, I found this interesting. Quarterback battles to watch this spring. Uh, just going through some of them. Michigan, obviously with J.J. McCarthy headed to the NFL. Um, you got people who are vying for the title. You got Jaden Denegal, Alex Orji, Jaden Davis, Jack Tuttle, and Davis Horton. So there's five. You got five quarterbacks um, that are going to vie for the top position there for Michigan. And again, you have the spring games, then you have the off-season program, and then you got the camps in August. I certainly expect this to come down, to the last minute. You got that kind of talent at that position. I mean, Christ, five of them, and of course, three will probably transfer at the end of the year anyway. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, Ohio State. You got Will Howard, the transfer from Kansas State. Angel talked to at the end of last year. Devin Brown, Lincoln Keenholz, Julian Sand, and Air Noland That's right, Air Noland. I'm going to say that probably Will Howard is the front runner here. It's probably his to lose.
Yep.
Um, so we will keep an eye on that. But Will Howard, obviously, the front runner in that equation there. You got Oregon, obviously, Bo Nix headed to the NFL. Fantastic career there. Fantastic. What was it, 6, 7 years that he had? I don't know. You have Dylan Gabriel, who transferred from Oklahoma, and then Dante Moore. Dylan Gabriel, obviously, in this particular position, he is the favorite going into the season. We will have to keep an eye on that as well. Then you go out to USC. Obviously, Caleb Williams, uh, high on people's draft boards. I don't know why. The contenders are Miller Moss and Jaden Malava. Uh, you know, who was it? Who was it? Was it Miller that had the 6 touchdown passes in the Hollow Bowl? I don't remember. I'm trying to look it up here. Um, uh, we'll keep an eye on this, but one game doesn't mean anything. Uh, and again, we'll keep an eye on that. Um, then you go up to Washington. Obviously, Michael Penix Jr. Going to the NFL. Contender is Will Rogers, who was had a good career at Mississippi State, but with all the uncertainty there, he's traveling to Washington. He was actually going to transfer somewhere else, but then he decided against it. You got uh, Demarcus Davis and Devin Williams Jr. Uh, I fully expect for Will Rogers to come out on top here. He is the favorite going in. And then you have Nebraska. Contenders are Heinrich Harbarg and Dylan Raiola. People are high on Raiola. 6'3", 220 pounds. Um, I think his father was his father that played for the Huskers way back when. I believe so. I fully expect him to win it outright. You go to Arkansas. We got Taylor Green, Jacoby Criswell, and Malachi Singleton. Again, I think that comes down to the last day. They might not even decide to name a starter until game time, to be quite honest with you. So that I found that interesting because with so many people transferring, so many people entering the portal and whatnot, quarterback, you obviously want to have stability at the position. But again, guys transfer left and right, so you've got to try and bring other people, good competition. Some guys will go into you know camp as the favorite, but that doesn't mean anything in today's day and age. Uh, you got to try and rise above everybody. Sometimes it happens in the spring game. Sometimes it happens in the off-season program leading up to the spring game, and then when you play the spring game, you solidify it. But I have a feeling with a lot of these battles that are going to go on that some of these are going to come down to the final wire. Um, Again, Jason Priester at 7:30. Hopefully that he gets in here and we can pick his brain about the Clemson spring game coming up. I've got questions. Uh, Clemson last year, they started off gangbusters, then they had the losing streak, then they went on a winning streak. So it was sort of a mixed bag last year, and it'll just be interesting to hear Jason's perspective on it because, I thought maybe Davos Sweeney was on the hot seat after that losing streak. It looked like the program was basically headed for mediocrity again, but then they picked it up. He got that team motivated. Um, Fans had their panties in a bunch. When you have success like Davos had, and of course, any kind of sports fan, it's a what have you done for me lately? That's just the nature of the beast. And I see Mr. Priester is in the green room. So, Angel, if you want to bring him up, let's bring him up because I can see him back there. There he is. Hey, Jason, man, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Doing good. And there's only 20 weeks till the beginning of college football season. So, um, look, man, we're already in April. It's right around the corner. It's coming fast. Look, with Clemson, they got the spring game coming up this Saturday. Uh, Again, sort of a mixed bag last year. Obviously, Clemson started off strong. Then they had that losing streak. Then they had the winning streak. There's still a lot of question marks as far as the team goes. Um, Not sure what you're looking. I'm interested to see how Kay Klubnik's going to respond after what happened last year. I know they've got decent quarterbacks that are coming in. Uh, is Cade is he like the legit number one starter, or is he going to have legitimate competition?
Oh no, he's the guy, man. You've got Chris Vizina behind him, who redshirted last year. He'll be a redshirt freshman this year, but Kay Klubnik's the guy, and that'll be a big part. That'll be a big storyline of the spring game Saturday. Is where he's kind of at in the next phase of his development, because you need him to take a big jump as opposed to or compared to where he was last season. And listening to some of the coaches and his teammates and talk throughout the spring when we've had access to him, they toss around the word comfortable a lot, how he's looked a lot more comfortable, and that's something they've kind of been waiting on. I had Avion Terrell told us last week that he's been letting it rip. He's been looking more comfortable, and that's kind of what they've been waiting on. And if he can be the guy that he was there at Westlake as a senior, man during his high school career, I think Clemson's in pretty good shape. Because that offense was discombobulated. It was a mess last year, or the passing game, anyways. They just had so much trouble picking up the chunk plays and pushing the ball down the field. So when you needed a score, you had to rely on those long extended drives, 10, 11, 12 plays sometimes, and having to dink and dunk down the field. And you need to be able to pick up chunk plays in the day's game of college football. And Clemson struggled with that of late. And that's going to be one of the bigger things to keep an eye on Saturday. Can they put some explosiveness back in that offense?
Is Coach Riley on the hot seat to produce?
Yeah, I don't know if he's on the hot seat. Absolutely. I think everybody had higher expectations than what we saw last year. I'll never forget. We had a press conference with Garrett Wright. I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks into the season, and he's talking about the offense and why it doesn't resemble what he had at TCU, and pretty much all but said he doesn't have the same caliber of players. Clemson has so much youth on the offensive side of the ball last year, as far as how many underclassmen they were playing, and a ton of injuries in the wide receiver room. And that group's kind of been mostly healthy this spring for the first time in a couple years. And you got Klubnik, who's going into his third season now, second as the full-time starter. He's had a year in this system. Everybody that's there outside of the incoming freshmen have had a year in this system, so everybody should be more comfortable. It's supposed to be with this offense. It's all about the reps. The more reps you get, the better you're going to be at it. And I would think by now everybody's had enough reps to should be know what they're going to be doing. And to me, I don't think there's any question about whether they're going to be improved. I think they're going to be better. The question is, are they going to be that much better? So much so to where they compete on the national level.
Uh, Peter Woods, better at defensive end or better at defensive tackle? Because I know that's been sort of a point of conjecture moving him to defensive end. Um, I don't know what's your take on that.
When it was first, the idea was first being tossed around, I was not a big fan of it. And then I heard Dabo Sweeney say something when he made it official in his first presser of the spring, and he was talking about moving Woods outside, and he was like, we talked about it, and we figured there wasn't a better end in the transfer portal we could have targeted who's better than Peter Woods. And the more I think about it, the more I've started to like the idea. You move him outside. Defensive tackle might be one of the positions Clemson's deepest at. They've got a bunch of talented bodies there. You move him outside, that opens some opportunities for some of those younger guys. A guy like Vic Burley, who redshirted last year, Stephon Green. I think DeMonte Capart's an older guy who's patiently waited his turn, who started getting some opportunities last year, who I think is primed for a breakout season. And guys like Trey Williams and Peyton Page. I mean, they can rotate so many bodies in and out on the interior of that defensive line. And I think Woods moving outside, it kind of gives you flashbacks to Christian Wilkins. He spent a season playing outside there at defensive end for Clemson, and he was very successful at it. Um, while I think Woods is probably better suited to play inside, that's probably that'll absolutely probably be where he plays at the next level. I don't think you're hurting yourself by moving him out there. I think he's certainly capable of playing outside. He said he was going to drop a little bit of weight to kind of maybe slim down just a hair, but and he's already quick as a cat. And it gives defensive end is where Clemson was kind of thin, and it gives you a lot. Moving him outside just gives you so much more experience as opposed to what you would have had without him there.
I really hate to be the bearer of bad news in as far as like a sore spot, but it comes up time and time again. The kicking game, Jason, the field goal kickers. Are they going to find a field goal kicker this year that's going to be consistent, or are they going to have to like maybe look to the soccer team?
I don't think we're going to know the answer to that until we get into the season. They were relying on a redshirt freshman last year, Billy Gunn, who was one of the better kickers coming out in his high school class, and it just once he got out there, you realize, hey man, he can do it in practice, but he's not ready to do it in front of 80,000, and he struggled. He struggled mightily. They had to bring in a guy that had already left, and Jonathan White, and bring him back as as the kicker down the stretch, and they've got another really good freshman that's enrolled early. His name's Nolan Hoosier out of North Carolina. He's by all accounts had a really strong spring, but again, it's about doing it in front of 80,000 on a Saturday in a real game. And this kid set all kind of records at the high school level. He's got the leg. It's just it's just a matter of seeing it. We're just gonna have to see it. Speaking of Gunn, by all accounts, he's had a solid bounce back spring. But again, it's all about doing it when the pressure's on.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to do it in high school. It's another thing to do it in Death Valley. When you have all those eyes on you and it's a pressure cooker situation, not everybody can handle it. So, not everybody's built for it. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. What about the offensive line? Because I know last year they looked decent at times, but then there was other games, Jason, where you looked at it and you were like, "Do they know what they're doing?" What are you looking for from the offensive line this spring?
There's a reason there's a new offensive line coach in town. Let's put it that way. I'm not sure that the guy that was there, I'm not sure his style so much, meshed so well with what Garrett Riley was trying to do on offense. That's just a theory of mine. But yeah, Clemson really struggled up front, particularly over the first half of last season. They went back to doing more zone blocking over the second half of the season and looked a little better, especially in the run blocking. But yeah, that's going to be another big storyline. I don't know how much we'll be able to take away from what we see in the spring game. It'll depend on how they split the rosters up. But if you get, if it'd be neat if they kept all five starters on one team and you can see them playing together and you can see, how cohesive they are. But I fully expect Matt Luke, who's the new offensive line coach, to bring, a different kind of level of physicality. I think Clemson's lacked in that department up front at times over the past few years, and that's something we've heard talked about a good bit during the spring is the physicality the offensive line's been playing with. I know, he's looking to get bigger up front, and that's something that'll have to be addressed in recruiting. But to me, that's what I want to see. How physical are those guys up front? And I think that's something you can get at least a little bit of a feel for, no matter how those rosters are split. You can tell by individual performances how physical a guy's playing.
People keep talking about Sammy Brown and Bryant Westco heading into the spring here. What do we know? What are you looking for? What's the chatter?
Bryant Westco has just gotten rave reviews all spring. It doesn't matter who you ask, um, from head coach to coordinate, offensive coordinator, teammates. I've even have a couple of recruits I've talked to that have been at a practice, and eh, Westco makes at least one play. Um, we're talking about bringing some explosiveness back to that offense. Westco's going to be a guy that's going to help you do that. He probably needs to add a few pounds before the season gets here, but he's supposedly been making some head turning plays in practice. He's a guy that's going to help immediately. I know the one practice that I was able to attend, very first practice of the spring, and it was all, don't get me wrong, it was individual drills. They don't let us see a whole lot, but I watched a lot of Sammy Brown that day, and he just moves so well. He's so fluid in everything he does. He's so agile, sideline to sideline. Um, and Wes Goodwin, we got to talk to defensive coordinator Wes Goodwin last week, and he spoke very highly of how Sammy's able to come in and soak everything up, the playbook, and he always knows what they're doing. And the rare time he does make a mistake, he rarely makes the same one twice. And he's been really good. There. I'm not saying he's going to come in and start or anything, but he's been repping a lot there at Mike, which is middle linebacker, and Clemson's defense. And Wes Goodwin talked about how good he's been. He used the word quarterback in the defense, if I'm not mistaken. So, positive reviews for both those guys. I think those are two guys that are going to help you this year.
Now I know Dabo doesn't like to talk about the transfer portal because he just doesn't like to dip into it. Has he dipped into it a little bit more in the offseason? What do we know about the transfer coming in? Like I said, I know he's been reluctant to do it, but with NIL and the transfer portal, Jason, it's just sort of like wreaked havoc in college football anyway. So why not conform to the norm? Because you might find maybe a blue chipper in there that you didn't know you had.
Yeah, they tried to address the offense, the depth along the offensive line through the portal, during the offseason. Targeted a handful of guys, didn't hit on a single one for one reason or another. Once you start getting into the portal, man, if I don't think any of the guys were going to come in and start. And that's if you're recruiting the portal, there's are probably going to be guys that are looking to go somewhere and start. They're looking for more playing time, so that's probably one thing that hurts you. And if you're not looking for a starter, when we start talking about NIL, you got to decide, hey man, how much is this guy worth if he's not starting for us, and you don't want to overspend on a guy that's not gonna come in and play a whole lot in year number one. So it's a lot of things. I don't think you're ever going to see Dabo, start recruiting the portal and trying to build his roster through the portal. But I think you'll see him try to fill a hole here and there, and that's what they tried to do. They took a shot on a couple of guys that they thought, that they could develop over the next year or two and could help them down the line. But again, these guys in the portal, they want to play, man. They're in the portal for a reason. For the most part, they want to play now, and so Clemson missed out on a guy. He ended up at Georgia Tech, and he'll probably start at Georgia Tech this year. Missed out on another guy at Tennessee, and I don't, or no, not Tennessee. Heck, I forget now. It's been so long ago. But they did another one they had committed to Penn State, and then he ended up decommitting from Penn State, and I think he committed to Maryland. So it's the portal's a tricky thing, and the way Clemson approaches it makes it even a little trickier because they're not going to be out there, throwing a bunch of money around. They're not going to pay anybody to sign on the dotted line. They're going to make you come in and earn whatever you get. And so the portal's always kind of a hot button topic inside the Clemson fan base because you got some people that like that love the way Dabo have used the portal, and then you got others that want him to just start recruiting every 5-star that hits the portal. So there's no happy medium with a lot of people.
So I went back and took a look at the team stats for the 2023-2024 season. Now, Clemson had a top 10 defense in the country. It's their offense that was like middle of the pack, which is not what fans are used to in Clemson. So really, what I'm looking for, Jason, not only in the spring but leading up to camp, how much can they improve offensively? I think if they can improve offensively enough with the defense that they have. I don't see why they couldn't tack another ACC title onto it. I know everybody's raving about Florida State, but look, the ending that Florida State had last year, you know how they're going to bounce back off that. Um, you got North Carolina that's in a little bit of they're in flux. NC State, I talked about it before. They always seem to be on the precipice of doing something really good, but they can never get over the hump. And then you always have to throw in like a Wake Forest. They have like one of those spectacular years, like every 5 or 6 years or so. So I say that if Clemson can at least improve somewhat offensively, Jason, that they're going to be in the thick of the ACC race.
Oh, I agree 100%. You've got that. You've got a championship caliber defense. Even despite losing a couple of guys up front and linebacker Jeremiah Trotter and probably your best corner in Nate Wiggins, you've got plenty of talent to fill those voids left by those departures. It's all about the offense, and it's like I mentioned a few minutes ago. I fully expect Clemson's offense is going to be improved in 2024. The question is, how much improved, and are they that much improved? I think Clemson's going to be compete for ACC championship. Make no mistake. But there's a difference between competing, at least most years. There's a difference between competing for an ACC title and competing for a national title. Um, I think Clemson's got the talent to compete for a playoff spot. I'm just not sure what they do once they got there. And now that you've got the expanded playoff, it's a whole different conversation now, anyways. But they've done a lot of good things to kind of address those deficiencies on the offensive side of the ball. Got Wesco and another really good receiver coming here in the summer, and TJ Moore, both guys who I think are going to help this year. And then again, the hiring of Matt Luke to address some of those issues up front. It's a good question. How much improved that offense is going to be, and I don't know that we're going to know the answer to that until we get into the season. I think it's definitely going to be improved. I'm just not sure if it's going to be that much improved. Is it going to be a top 10 or top 15 offense? I don't know. A lot of that's going to hinge on those guys up front and what kind of jump K. Klubnik's taking this year.
Does the August 31st game to open up the season against Georgia, does that set the tone for the rest of the season?
That's going to be a very good indicator of where this offense is at. You're going to know game one how capable they are of competing at the highest level. It depends. If you go to Atlanta and get your teeth kicked in and boat race by Georgia, yeah, it's going to set the tone. If you go there and you lose in the same fashion you lost in the last time you played Georgia, which was up in Charlotte, Clemson lost 10-3 on a pick six, basically. That's a little different. If you show you can hang with them and still lose, maybe it doesn't hurt so bad. But Clemson's going to be double digit underdogs when that game rolls around, and it's going to be a good gauge of where this program is from a national standpoint. I'm kind of anxious to see how they line up because I think Georgia's probably going to be the best team in the country next year, at least going
Because
into the season.
I look at the rest of the schedule, and then they play Appalachian State, which is always tough. But they get NC State at home, so that's a positive. We know what happened last time NC State went into Clemson back in 2022. They got boat raced. Then, of course, something I never thought I'd see as an old school hat, Jason, Stanford comes to Clemson. I think it's ludicrous. They should win that football game. They've got to go to Florida State. They should have beaten Florida State last year. I mean, I watched that game. They should have beaten them. They go to Wake Forest, which I think that they should win that. We know what happens with Virginia. They get Virginia at home. Louisville might be tough, but they get them at home. Virginia Tech isn't what they used to be. Pittsburgh isn't what they used to be, obviously. I know they won the ACC a couple of years ago, but, they play the Citadel, and then they close it out with, South Carolina, as always. To me, Georgia, NC State, and Florida State are the three big games on that schedule. If they lose to Georgia, I think if they beat NC State at home and they go to Florida State and win that game, I think they win the ACC title.
Oh yeah, obviously what happens there against Georgia has no bearing on what happens in the ACC. But yeah, I think you nailed it. It's that North Carolina State game at home and that trip to Tallahassee against Florida State. Those are the two big ones. And another little added dimension with that Florida State game is you got DJ Uyunglele down there with the Seminoles now, so that'll set up a interesting dynamic when we get to that game, Clemson against his former quarterback. But um, I do think Dave Doran's done a lot of good things in the portal over the offseason that could make that North Carolina State really good. But you touched on something at the beginning when you said they always seem at the precipice, but have trouble getting over that hump. We'll see if they can finally get over that hump because, again, I think they made a lot of good moves in the portal. I think they're going to be really good. But we'll see if they're still a 9-win team or if they can get, you know, over that hump once and for all. And I just don't know about Florida State and that offense, particularly if
Mm-hmm.
DJ wins that job. I think we've seen his ceiling, but I could be wrong. But I do think Clemson's, I think there's enough talent on this football team to compete with anybody in the ACC. And I think I don't think we're on the verge of seeing another 4-loss season. Let's put it that way. I think this is a team that's certainly capable of competing for an ACC title.
I hate to end the last like 8 minutes on a negative connotation here, but Clemson suing the ACC about the exit fees, ACC countersuing Clemson. This is the part of college football that I hate, that it's headed to. Jason, we're talking about, is the ACC going to follow suit with the Pac 12 and disband? Because I hear 50-50. Um, I, I think it would be disastrous, just like with the Pac 12. And I get it. It's all about money, it's all about realignment, it's all about this bullcrap that I cannot stand. Jason, I'm an old school hat. Everything was regional, it was tribal, it was the late October, early November rivalries. It's losing its luster. It's losing its. As a fan, am I still going to watch college football? Yes, but it's not the same canvas as it was anymore. So I mean, what are you hearing ACC wise? Where are we headed?
Yeah, I think I don't know where the ACC's headed. I don't know if they're gonna you know, end up like the Pac-12 and just cease to exist, or they'll have enough, teams stick around to maybe be relegated to what is basically known today as a Group of Five conference. Because I think we're headed for a Power Two. SEC, Big Ten. I think we're headed for a complete break. I don't know how many teams in the ACC are going to be included in that. I fully expect Florida State will, Clemson will, North Carolina will, maybe another team or two, but that's a good question. What happens to everybody else that doesn't get included? Do some of them maybe break off and go to the Big 12? And if that happens, then yeah, I could absolutely see the ACC ceasing to exist. But that's a big part of why they added Stanford and Cal and SMU. They wanted to prepare for the exits of Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina. But I don't know if it's going to be enough to save them because I don't think there's any way to keep those schools in the conference. At some point, there's going to be some kind of settlement. They're going to negotiate that, you know, exit fee down, and those schools are going to get out. It's just a matter of when and a matter of what happens and what's left over for the ACC once those things happen.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this man is my Clemson contact. He's been nice enough to come on twice now. He's always a plethora of knowledge when it comes to Clemson football. Um, Jason, tell all the good folks out there where they can get a hold of you or where they can read your material.
Yeah, I'm a beat writer over at allclemsontigers.com. I handle all the recruiting over there. At all Clemson Tiger and my personal Twitter page at JP_Priester.
Jason, as we get closer and closer to the season, I will most likely have a special. um, you're more than welcome to come on anytime, and I always appreciate your time, man.
Yes, sir, man. Anytime. All you got to do is ask.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. You too. Thanks.
All right. It's Jason Priester, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I like picking people's brains. Obviously, he has the pulse on the ACC of what might happen. I hate to see all of it. I just really do. Um, when it comes to all the old rivalries, and again, it's just like it was so tribal and it was so fantastic the way it was. Much in the same way, like Angel and I always talk about NASCAR. NASCAR had a fantastic product. It worked. They didn't tinker with it at all, too much. And then Dale Earnhardt passes away, and then they go and come up with the playoffs, and then they come up with stage racing, and then they come up with all these different rules and bonus points and all that crap. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Um, and again, we can thank Commissioner Greg Sankey from the SEC for allowing Texas and Oklahoma to come into the SEC, because once that happened, all the dominoes started to fall, and it's just a freaking shame. Again, as a fan, I will still watch college football. Is it going to have the same luster? Is it going to have the same dynamic to it? No. We're going to go to a 16-team playoff, I think, in a couple years. Um, and again, it just Ohio State, Michigan may not. It's not going to have the same luster as it once did. Both teams could be 11-0 going into that game. We don't have a Big Ten championship anymore, so they go into that game. It doesn't have the same luster. You know why? Because both of them could be 11-0. One of them's going to lose. They're still going to make the playoff. So it doesn't have that same oomph that it did. Just like where Angel is with South Florida. South Florida and the University of Central Florida, they're separated by what, maybe 60, 65 miles. It's a rivalry unto itself. I don't think all these tribal rivalries that you have had in the past just won't have the same luster. Just like Auburn, Alabama. Yes, it's tradition, but Auburn and Alabama could both be 11-0 headed into the Iron Bowl, and one of them loses the game, they still might both make the playoffs. Whereas before, one of them gets knocked out, they don't play in the SEC championship game. You go home, you play in a decent bowl, but that's the end of it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, the Joey B's of the world, the Mike Fujis, everybody that tunes in, everybody that might listen to this later, 102.9 The Game. I want to thank Angel for producing, as always. I want to thank our sponsors. Oh my God, Mustaki's Heroes. I always screw the name up. Mustaki Authentic Heroes, and also Pete's Famous Pizza. Again, thanks to everybody who tunes in. Man, we're in April, and I can't wait, man. 4.5 months till college football. It can't come soon enough. Up next on Broad Street South, Lloyd Vance's Watch the NFL Show. Tune in. I will see everybody next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. We'll see you next week, everybody.